In the quiet of a workshop, a lone blacksmith stands ready. His back is to us, a figure of pure, focused intent. He raises a heavy hammer high into the air and brings it down with a resounding crash. But he's not alone. A spectral voice whispers from behind, questioning his resolve. This apparition wonders if he can truly see his revenge through to the end. The blacksmith dismisses the taunt, but the spirit only digs deeper, suggesting it's guilt he feels. He tries to ignore the voice, focusing on his burning determination. Again and again, the hammer falls, each strike a testament to his will. But the taunts trigger a horrific memory of a woman named Siola, lost to a terrible fate. The memory is of a battlefield, a tattered banner waving over the ruins. He remembers holding his dying father in his arms. A scream of pure agony rips through the rain-soaked night. The spirit mocks him, calling it ironic for a weapon maker to seek revenge. It finds his entire quest to be utterly absurd. The blacksmith closes his eyes, trying to shut out the voice, but they snap open with a defiant glare. He declares that his resolve remains completely unchanged. His mind then drifts to another time, holding a simple wooden box. For 15 years, he lived as the demon craftsman, the blacksmith for the blood cult. He knows that no matter the reason, the tragedy his hands wrought will never change. And so, he decides to take matters into his own hands. His face hardens with a cold, unwavering resolve. It was time for the demon craftsman to take his place. We're thrown back to a grand ceremony, a celebration of conquest for the blood cult. A speaker declares their 15-year rise to become masters of the martial world. He credits their absolute victory to the one who made it all possible, the fearsome and imposing blood demon lord, and to honor this day, the demon craftsman is summoned forward. He walks the long path to present his latest creation. He walks with purpose, unconcerned if this act is for atonement or not. Reaching his destination, he kneels before the cult's leader and presents the ornate box as his offering. But as he opens it, a blinding purple light erupts from within. The Lord's eyes narrow, sensing something is terribly wrong. He questions the strange gift, a dagger made of pure, volatile energy. To him, it appears as though there's nothing there at all, but the craftsman's eyes burn with a cold fire, knowing that today, it all finally comes to an end. In a flash, he lunges forward, his true plan set in motion. The Lord's guard screams in outrage at the craftsman's betrayal, but a wave of immense power sends the craftsman flying back. The guard is stunned, his uniform shredded by the sheer force. The blood demon lord effortlessly repels the attack with a single gesture. Our boy is thrown across the hall, but his weapon continues its path, morphing into a massive spear of dark energy aimed right at the throne. Yet the lord remains seated, completely unfazed by the incoming threat. The weapon connects, causing a massive explosion that rocks the entire chamber. The craftsman watches in disbelief, his heart sinking with dread, because through the smoke, the blood demon lord stands completely unharmed. But the craftsman declares that it's not over yet. The blood demon lord simply toys with the remnants of his power. He vows to take everything from the blood demon, burning his own life and energy to fuel one final attack. His eyes reflect the sheer power he's now commanding. With a final, desperate roar, he slams his fist into the ground, unleashing all of that power in a single violent eruption. The ground itself shatters from the sheer force of the blast. The Lord's guard watches in shock, unable to comprehend this level of power. And as the dust settles, the Lord looks down into the crater left behind. The cost of that power is immense as he collapses in a pool of his own blood. He struggles to his knees, gasping for air, his body completely broken. The blood demon lord looks down, finding the entire display utterly amusing. He calmly examines the weapon, a dagger without form that can't be sensed. A divine artifact he recognizes as the legendary formless dagger. The craftsman is stunned, questioning how the Lord could possibly know about the weapon. Before he can react, the Lord is upon him in a flash of movement. He mocks his once faithful servant, questioning if he truly understands the situation. He reveals he knows the craftsman's true lineage, calling his quest for revenge utterly futile. But even as the Lord's grip tightens, the craftsman spits back with pure defiance. The Lord mocks him, saying it's a shame he's all out of power. With his last breath, the craftsman utters a curse meant to last an eternity. Unfazed, the Lord offers the formless dagger back as a final twisted gift. He begins to chant an incantation, weaving dark energy around the weapon. The craftsman can only watch in horror, unable to comprehend the Lord's actions. With a single powerful motion, he hurls the craftsman away. A scream of agony escapes him as he's flung across the ruined hall. The Lord stands amidst a storm of red lightning, the dagger now a colossal weapon of energy. He reaches out a hand, commanding the immense power with ease, and sends the supercharged formless dagger hurtling back towards its creator. The craftsman can only scream as his own creation comes to end him. The supercharged dagger tears through the air, a blur of red energy. It finds its mark, piercing him straight through the heart. As he falls, his mind races, wondering where it all went so wrong. He reflects on a life unlived, a gift for crafting born from a curse. Sinking into the abyss, he questions if any of this could have been avoided. Would knowing the future have changed the tragic outcome of his life? And so, the life of the demon craftsman, Tang Siwoon, finally comes to an end. But then, a quiet room, a table set with a simple meal. A fist slams down on the table, shattering the sudden peace. Tang Siwoon is snapped back to reality by an angry voice. He's completely disoriented, wondering where he is and why it's so loud. A sharp pain lances through his head as he stares at the man across from him. He remembers dying, yet every sight and sound feels impossibly real. The man across from him loses his patience, demanding to know what happened to the blood demon. He stands and shouts, trying to snap young Master Tang out of his daze. He raises a hand, declaring that a dog who won't listen needs a good beating to come to its senses. The sharp sting of the blow seems to finally bring him back to the present. As the man demands to know if he's finally awake, Tang Siwoon recognizes the faces before him. His memory shifts, and he recalls turning to see someone behind him. He remembers the sound of a single tear falling onto her shoulder. It was Siola, huddled on the floor and crying out in despair. The sight filled his younger self with a burning, helpless rage, a memory of finding her after she had taken her own life. He realizes with absolute certainty that he's 16 years in the past, at the celebration where he failed to protect Siola from a terrible fate. The memory is crystal clear, a moment of failure he can never forget. Whether this is a dream or reality, it doesn't matter to him now. All that matters is reaching Siola, promising her that this time everything will be okay. He apologizes for failing to protect her, vowing that even in a dream, he will change everything, ignoring the furious man about to strike him again. But as the blow comes down, Tang Siwoon catches his wrist with impossible speed. He gives the man a single chance to apologize for his actions. The aggressor is stunned, believing our boy has finally lost his mind. He accuses Tang Siwoon of starting the trouble, but the kid simply remarks on his sister's wisdom, for having the good sense to reject the man's marriage proposal. The insult hits its mark, and the man's face contorts with pure rage. But Tang Siwoon isn't finished, adding that no one could ever stand to be near him. His words push the man over the edge, his fist tightening with murderous intent. Tang Siwoon adds that the man's ugly nature is impossible to overlook. The man's rage boils over as he draws his blade, promising to silence him for good. But Tang Siwoon sidesteps the attack with impossible ease. The aggressor is left stunned, unable to comprehend what just happened. He recalls how last time he was powerless to even resist such an attack. But this time, he moves with a grace and speed they can't possibly match. From the sidelines, another guest watches with a curious smirk. He notes the kid's arrogance, barely dodging yet acting completely in control. The aggressor channels his energy into his blade for a more powerful strike. He leaps through the air, vowing that Tang Siwoon won't get lucky a second time. The man stares in disbelief as Tang Siwoon asks if things aren't going his way. But instead of landing, his blade is met with another, stopped dead in its tracks. Sparks fly as steel grinds against steel, the attack completely neutralized. The aggressor can only grunt in frustration, unable to push through the block. Tang Siwoon, however, remains perfectly composed, his expression cold and steady. With a swift motion, he sends a powerful kick straight into the man's chest. The blow sends his opponent flying across the room, utterly defenseless. He crashes hard against the floor, stunned by the sudden and brutal reversal. A dangerous red light begins to glow in Tang Siwoon's eyes. And for the first time, his attacker looks genuinely terrified. His eyes burn with a cold, murderous light. He explodes forward in a blur of red energy, closing the distance in an instant. With a single fluid motion, he brings his blade around in a devastating arc. The man's arrogance melts into pure terror, his pleas dying on his lips. The strike connects with brutal, undeniable force. His opponent collapses, clutching his arm, as Tang Siwoon thinks this is only the beginning. He looms over the trembling man, promising that the real fight has just begun. The man can't comprehend how a worthless kid could possess such power, but his strength comes from a dark past, forged in the fires of the blood cult. As his opponent vows revenge, Tang Siwoon's expression remains utterly unmoved. He takes a slow, deliberate step forward as his opponent begs him to stay back. Dang Si-woon admits he's no hero, declaring it's simply time to settle their score. The man can only stare in absolute terror, a single tear of fear rolling down his cheek. With a cold smile, Dang Si-woon promises that his next target is the man's heart. The onlookers are stunned, unable to believe that the renowned Lee Hosang has lost. They can't understand how a disciple of the Alliance leader fell to a nobody from a fallen clan. As one of them tries to intervene, Dang Si-woon's eyes flash with red light and he grabs his foe. The remaining guests decide it's best to leave, wanting no part of what's to come. Dang Si-woon pays them no mind, his focus entirely on the man before him. A strange purple energy begins to pulse from a sphere at his waist. A trickle of blood escapes his lips, a sign of the strain he's under. He knows he must endure, for he can't risk revealing his demonic power here. He tells the defeated Lee Hosang that his personal insults meant nothing, but crossing the line and harming his sister was an unforgivable sin. Lee Hosang can only scream in defiance, ordering him to get lost. But Dang Si-woon declares that for what he's done, he deserves to die. He brings his blade down with murderous intent, ready to end it all. But his strike is intercepted at the last second by an unknown party. Dang Si-woon stares in disbelief, wondering who would dare to intervene. It's the same man who was watching from the crowd, now standing between him and his revenge. The man who intervened stands ready, his blade held firm. But more have arrived, declaring they can no longer stand by and watch. He recognizes them as the Dragon's Successor Guards, an elite unit. Their commander, Sun Ugon, looks at Dang Si-woon with pure contempt, and in that moment, Dang Si-woon realizes they were all in on it together. He remembers the future, a bloody incident where these very men betray the Alliance. Knowing the tragedy they will cause, he decides they must all be eliminated here and now. But the first man to intervene questions the guard's authority. He points out that Lee Hosang isn't an official disciple yet, giving them no official right to get involved in this fight. The commander is taken aback, wondering how this stranger could know about Lee Hosang's probation. The intervener calls out their hypocrisy, noting how they stood by while an innocent woman was harassed, but now rush to defend the very man responsible, claiming it's the Alliance's law. Dang Si-woon can only offer a cold, knowing smile at their twisted logic. He questions if this is truly the standard of the so-called righteous path. His sarcastic words mock their claims of impartiality. Enraged, the commander draws his blade, accusing them of dishonoring the Alliance. He gives them one last chance to kneel and apologize before things get ugly. But the intervener simply scoffs, questioning if the commander talked his way into his position. The insult pushes the commander to the absolute brink of his patience. With a single gesture, the commander orders his men to seize the intervener. The guards rush forward, but the intervener calmly assesses the threat. He notes their commander is a peak master, backed by 3 first-rate warriors. He meets the first guard's blade without a hint of hesitation. Steel grinds against steel as he effortlessly parries the blow. A swift kick sends the first attacker reeling as another leaps from above. He turns just in time to see a third guard closing in from his flank. A blade slices down, aimed directly for his head. The other 2 guards press their advantage, attacking from all sides. Yet even surrounded, his expression remains completely unfazed. He weaves through their coordinated assault with impossible grace. He knows his internal energy is limited, with only a couple of years' worth left. Realizing this, he decides to end the battle as quickly as possible. One of the guards lunges forward, putting all his strength into the strike. But the intervener pivots with blinding speed, and launches himself into the air with a powerful kick. The blow lands squarely on the guard's head, stunning him completely. He sends the man flying backwards, already turning his attention to the next. His blade flashes in a brilliant arc, and another guard is sent hurtling through the air, leaving his comrade in utter disbelief. With a flick of his wrist, he sends the final guard's weapon spinning away. The guard can only seethe, furious that a supposed third-rate warrior is making a fool of them. The commander's hand tightens on his hilt, his patience finally wearing thin. He glares down at the intervener, calling him a monster for his display of skill. With his eyes glowing red, he warns the man to back down immediately. Dang Si-woon watches from the side, his expression unreadable. The commander explodes forward, unleashing the full force of a peak master. The intervener is thrown back, unable to withstand the sheer power of the blow. He crashes to the floor, his own daggers scattering across the ground. As he struggles to recover, the commander looms over him, victorious. The commander looms over his fallen opponent, questioning how a nobody dared to challenge him. He dismisses the intervener as third-rate trash who should know his place. As he drones on about the price of this disgrace, the intervener simply tunes him out. He mutters that the commander is too noisy, preventing him from getting a moment's rest. Realizing he has no other choice, he decides to force the issue and unleash a forbidden power by opening his upper dantian. The commander can only shout an alarm as the intervener lunges forward with renewed speed. He dismisses it as a trick, certain the outcome will remain the same. But surrounded by a brilliant blue aura, the intervener tells him to stop talking and fight. Enraged, the commander channels his own power, ready to grant what he sees as a death wish. The commander lunges forward, promising to grant his opponent's death wish. But the intervener stands his ground, his blue aura crackling with newfound power. His eyes narrow with intense focus as he prepares his counter. But it's Dang Se-woon who cries out in shock, recognizing the purple energy above them as the formless dagger. His mind flashes back to the moment of his death in his past life. Realizing the dagger must have entered his soul when the blood demon lord struck him down. As the commander closes in for the final blow, the intervener decides to seize this unexpected opportunity. He lets his own weapons fall to the ground, no longer needing them. He grasps the raw power of the formless dagger, vowing to end this in a single strike. A brilliant flash of light erupts from the hall, shaking the entire building. But before their blades can meet, both men are frozen in place by an unseen force. The commander stares in disbelief, realizing his body is no longer under his control. A quiet footstep marks the arrival of a new, powerful presence. An elderly man walks calmly through the frozen battlefield, his authority absolute. The intervener turns, stunned by the sudden appearance of this newcomer. The old man places a gentle hand on his shoulder and warns him against the careless use of such a dangerous power. The intervener's eyes widen as he recognizes the legendary figure before him. Everyone in the room immediately kneels, greeting the leader of the martial alliance. It's none other than the Sword Emperor, Yu Jin-hak, the strongest martial artist of the era. Dang Se-woon looks on, his expression a mix of awe and memory. He remembers this man, a figure of legend from his past life. His mind drifts back to the brutal war against the Blood Cult, a time when the Alliance was on the brink of collapse and many surrendered. But the Alliance leader and his Wudang clan refused to yield. The Sword Emperor stood as a beacon of hope, fighting tirelessly for the righteous path. Back in the present, Dang Se-woon retrieves his own blade. He pushes the memories aside, realizing the Sword Emperor didn't sense the formless dagger. It makes sense, as not even the Blood Demon Lord could perceive its true nature. But now he faces an entirely new problem. Dang Se-woon weighs his options, wondering if he could possibly fight back against the Sword Emperor. The Sword Emperor strokes his beard, finding the entire situation quite peculiar. He admits that despite his power, he can't sense anything from the young man before him. He concludes that the intervener must possess a truly unique and interesting talent. The intervener can only stare back, the tension of the moment weighing heavily on him. He turns his head in surprise as the Sword Emperor addresses him directly. The old man places a reassuring hand on his shoulder, telling him it's all right now. Meanwhile, an older woman comforts Siola, telling her that everything is fine. Dang Se-woon looks over, wondering who this woman is, as he never sensed her arrival. She turns to him with a scolding look, but he knows he was too preoccupied to notice her. The Sword Emperor offers his apologies to the woman, calling her Boyon. Dang Se-woon's eyes widen, the name sparking a sudden shocking realization. He recognizes her as the divine physician Boyon, a legendary healer and former sect leader. With two of the world's most powerful figures now present, he knows this situation has become impossibly tangled. The scene shifts to a moment ago, at a peaceful gazebo overlooking a pond. Boyon sips her drink, reminding the Sword Emperor that she had warned him about this. He listens with a weary expression as she insists that certain people will never change. The Emperor recalls becoming the Alliance leader to restore the chivalry and righteousness that had been lost. But he laments that even after all this time, nothing seems to have improved. Boyon simply pours another drink, questioning if he ever thought changing the world would be easy. She sets down her drink, chiding the Emperor for his stubborn nature. The two of them sit in a moment of quiet contemplation by the water. She advises him not to try and carry all the world's burdens by himself. She suggests that if the burden becomes too great, he should step down like she did and enjoy a more peaceful life. The Sword Emperor listens to her words, his expression thoughtful and weary. A faint smile plays on his lips as he considers her advice. But Boyon's expression turns to anger, warning him that this is no laughing matter. She asks who would be there to stop him if he were to fall to his inner demons. Her frustration boils over, calling him an infuriating man. Back in the present, she looks down at the fallen intervener, wondering how any of this is possible. The commander assesses the intervener's condition, declaring his wounds are beyond even a god's ability to heal. He can't believe that Dang Se-woon, a mere third-rate warrior, managed to defeat a first-rate expert. But Dang Se-woon steps forward, confirming that the divine physician's assessment is correct. The intervener looks up in surprise, questioning if our boy truly used projectile techniques. The Sword Emperor's eyes narrow, a flicker of suspicion crossing his face. He takes in the entire chaotic scene, a silent observer of the aftermath. The commander recalls the intervener's desperate state, urging him to find a way out of the fight. But now the intervener can only look on in defeat, wondering where it all went wrong. The commander tries to justify his actions to the emperor, claiming he was only upholding the righteous path. The Sword Emperor simply looks down at the fallen man, his expression unreadable as he takes it all in. The Sword Emperor's gaze hardens as he demands an explanation for the chaos. But Dang Se-woon stands firm, stating there's nothing to explain. He declares that as a member of the Tang clan, his actions against those who harmed his family were justified. With his explanation finished, he warns the emperor that from now on, he will not hold back against anyone who stands in his way. The Sword Emperor's eyes glow with power as he questions if the boy is willing to die for a moment's emotion. But Dang Se-woon doesn't hesitate, lunging forward in a blur of motion. The Emperor unleashes a technique of his own, the Golden Light Eye. The immense pressure brings Dang Se-woon to a halt, his body straining against the unseen force. The Emperor holds him at bay, demanding to know if this fleeting revenge is truly worth his life. He thinks about the path he must walk in this second life, remembering the chaos and destruction of the war, and the tattered banners of a world on the brink of collapse. He understands the Emperor's desire to fix this broken world piece by piece, and so he declares that he will walk that same path, even if it costs him his life. The Sword Emperor questions if he truly wishes to walk a path that even he wavered on. But if the boy's conviction is sincere, then it must be tested. Dang Se-woon's eyes narrow, his resolve completely unshaken. The Emperor unleashes a flurry of strikes in a blur of steel, bringing his blade down to test the boy's conviction once and for all. The Emperor's blade strikes the ground with immense force, his technique manifesting as a perfect balance of power and grace. But Dang Se-woon isn't afraid. He's analyzing the attack, recognizing the profound skill within it. He finds a strange beauty in the Emperor's swordsmanship, a technique so flawless and elegant that he almost wouldn't mind if this was how his second life came to an end. The Sword Emperor lets out a powerful roar, his test reaching its climax. But his blade doesn't strike Dang Se-woon. It stops just short of the defeated Hosang. The terrified man can only stammer out a single word as he recognizes his master. He scrambles to his knees as another figure enters the hall, his true master having finally arrived. The divine physician scolds the man for his disgraceful behavior towards someone who just faced death. His master holds a blade to his face, questioning his honor when his opponent risked everything. Hosang can only stammer, unable to answer when asked about his own chivalry. The master turns away in disgust as the man tries to shift the blame onto Dang Se-woon. He silences the pathetic excuses with a furious glare, unable to listen to anymore. Turning to Dang Se-woon, he offers a sincere apology and promises to take full responsibility. Hosang can only cry out in disbelief as his master turns his back on him. With a cold, final glare, the master completely disowns his disgraceful student. Dang Se-woon, however, simply reaches for the hilt of his own sword. A powerful aura erupts around him as the defeated man begs him to stay back. But Dang Se-woon declares that for a man like him, even death is a luxury. His fist crackles with a strange, brilliant blue energy. He lunges forward in a blur of motion, unleashing this new power. The blow connects with brutal force, striking his opponent in the gut. A sphere of pure energy erupts at the point of impact. The sheer force of the attack sends Hosang flying backwards. He tumbles helplessly through the air, completely overwhelmed by the strike. A cry of pure agony escapes him as the internal damage takes its toll. Dang Se-woon promises him a life of suffering far worse than any death. All the while, the Sword Emperor watches the scene unfold, his expression unreadable. The Sword Emperor asks Dang Se-woon to leave the final judgment to him. The intervener decides to step back, confident that justice will be served. He offers a respectful gesture, thanking the Emperor for preserving his dignity. With the immediate threat gone, Dang Se-woon finally goes to his sister's side. He lifts Siola into his arms as the Emperor promises to visit his clan to settle matters. The old man asks if Dang Se-woon can spare some time for him then. Dang Se-woon pauses, confirming that he can indeed make time for the alliance leader. He turns back with a confident smile, suggesting they share a cup of tea. The scene shifts to a vast mountain range, a place known as Tang Mountain. We're told this land, home to the Sichuan Tang clan, was once known by a different name, for this was the location of the Grand Sichuan Tang clan estate. But the clan's former glory was now a distant, shattered memory. Once one of the 7 great houses, they had fallen to the status of a mid-sized power. A woman expresses her concern, telling the clan leader he should be resting. She is Deng Siren, Siwun's older sister, and she rallies the Dark Fire Squad. Their top priority, she declares, is to secure the safety of the young clan leader, Deng Siwun. With their orders given, the squad prepares to depart immediately. She urges her people to steel their resolve for the fight ahead, but her words trail off as she sees a familiar figure approaching through the crowd. It's Deng Siwun, carrying his sister, announcing that he has finally returned home. His older sister holds him tight, but a question hangs in the air. He asks why the Dark Fire Squad was preparing to leave. Later, he walks through the quiet halls of the estate. He stops before a desk, finding a familiar portrait. It's a picture of his father, and a memory surfaces of the man's words, welcoming him back after a long absence. But another memory cuts through. The Blood Demon Lord's final chilling promise. His fist tightens as he questions if this entire second chance was part of the Lord's plan. The thought fills him with a cold, simmering rage. He vows that no matter the scheme, he will make the Blood Demon Lord regret it all. He makes a silent vow that this life will be different. With renewed purpose, he walks towards a bookshelf in the study. His hand reaches out, pulling a specific text from its place. It's the metal circulation technique, a skill passed down through the Tang clan's blacksmiths. His eyes narrow, a plan already forming in his mind. He looks down at a dark stain on the floor, wondering if it's a remnant from his past. But a sudden pain racks his body as he coughs up a mouthful of black blood. He collapses to his knees, realizing that circulating energy through meditation is a failure. The metal circulation technique was meant to assist with blacksmithing, offering enhanced regeneration. But it's inefficient for building power, a problem made worse by a body that now rejects internal energy as poison. He grits his teeth, knowing he had no other choice. But the same technique that failed him also gifted him the ability to create divine artifacts. And the demonic arts he learned for revenge have shown him a different solution. He knows he must find a new way to channel his power. Even in his past life, his deformed Dantian was a curse that no method could fix. So, in this new life, he faces the same fundamental problem. His body is still unable to handle traditional energy. But this time, he vows he will find a way to progress faster. As day turns to night over the Tang clan estate, a quiet stillness settles over the moonlit rooftops. Deng Siwun opens his eyes, his meditation finally complete. He feels his meridians connect, his internal energy finally stabilizing. He's achieved 50% mastery of the metal circulation technique, and 10% of the Blood Demon's heaven-defying arts. The two skills work in perfect harmony, one recovering his power while the other expands it. It's an impossible combination that no one in the world would ever believe. For the first time, he can freely wield the innate energy that once poisoned him. And with a quiet focus, he draws that power inward, concealing it so completely that no one can sense its presence. With his training done, he decides it's time for a change of clothes. He looks down at the formless dagger, wondering why it followed him into this second chance. But his thoughts are interrupted by a sudden sound. He turns to find a young boy peeking nervously from the doorway. The boy stammers out an apology, explaining he was sent to summon the young clan leader. He bows deeply, explaining the urgency, but Deng Siwun tells him it's all right. Deng Siwun then asks for the boy's name, recognizing him as Zhang Il. As the boy confirms his identity, Deng Siwun walks past with a knowing look. He offers a faint smile, remarking that it's good to see him again. With that, he makes his way through the bustling clan estate. His destination is a place called the Thousand Rain Hall. He arrives to hear the clan elders arguing about their desperate situation. With a quiet push, the doors to the hall swing open. He steps inside to face the grim expressions of the Tang clan's leadership. They look on with disapproval, their faces etched with worry and doubt. But Deng Siwun walks past them without a word, his purpose clear. He knows what must be done even if they can't see it yet. His mind flashes back to the day his world fell apart, a memory that has fueled his every step since. The image of his dying father is a burden he's carried for 16 years. But now, he stands ready to forge a new future from the ashes of his past. He offers a formal greeting, announcing himself as the young clan leader, Deng Siwun. The memory of his past life's suffering is a constant, agonizing weight, but he stands before them now with a calm and unwavering resolve. He declares that he has come at the clan leader's command. The current leader, Dang Muyol, simply orders him to rise. Deng Siwun straightens up, taking in the tense atmosphere of the hall. The elders murmur amongst themselves, questioning his sudden confidence. He turns to them, declaring that the Tang clan is currently in a poisoned state. He invites them to continue their discussion, adding that they suffer from 2 fatal poisons. With a raised hand, he decides to continue the explanation himself. The first to speak is Dang Ho-yol, the chief of the Manhwa escort agency. He reminds the young clan leader of the serious trouble he's caused. And for the sake of the clan, he begs Dang Se-woon to turn himself over to the alliance. But Dang Se-woon simply identifies him as the first poison Dang Ho-yol. A memory surfaces of his uncle's greed, a shadowy figure threatening to take everything. Dang Se-woon's fist tightens with a cold, unwavering resolve. He makes a silent vow to take it all back without fail. His mind flashes back to the day his uncle announced he was going independent. The man's expression was cold, confirming his intentions without a hint of remorse. His younger self could only cry out, knowing this would spell ruin for the Tang clan. His uncle simply pushes him away, declaring that this is exactly why he's leaving. The younger Dang Se-woon can only stare in disbelief, questioning how he could betray them. But the man turns his back, claiming the boy doesn't understand the resentment he's held for years. He reveals he's been waiting for this moment for a very long time. A wicked smile spreads across his face as he declares the Tang clan will finally be his. Back in the present, Dang Se-woon reflects that if he hadn't mastered his technique and gained his unique talents, the Tang clan would have collapsed from financial ruin long before the blood cult ever arrived. But his thoughts are cut short as another elder slams his hand on the table in fury. It's Dang Jun, the medicine hall master, who demands to know how Dang Ho-yol dares to be so disrespectful. He argues that sending the clan's heir to the law enforcement hall is unthinkable, a place from which no one returns unharmed. Dang Ho-yol strokes his chin, pretending to be burdened by the decision. But he insists that sacrificing the boy is the only path for the clan's survival. Dang Jun turns to another elder, asking if they have any allies who could possibly help them. But the outer hall chief steward, Sun Gaeon, can only remain silent, knowing they have none. The other elders murmur in agreement, terrified that the alliance leader's arrival spells their doom. Dang Se-woon sees that their fighting spirit is gone, a pervasive defeatism he calls the second poison. He admits that in his past life he was just like them, but now he vows to repay every grudge in blood. The clan leader then asks how he defeated his opponent, questioning if he used forbidden weapons. But Dang Se-woon simply tells him he's wrong, and that he's asking the wrong question entirely. Dang Ho-yol loses his patience, declaring this is no time for games. He dismisses the victory, insisting that Dang Se-woon is still just a third-rate warrior. But Dang Se-woon stands completely unfazed by the elder's peak-level energy. The man can only stare in disbelief, wondering how the boy could withstand his power. But the clan leader's voice cuts through the tension, demanding silence from everyone. He then asks Dang Se-woon to explain why he fought Lee Hosang in the first place. With a confident smile, Dang Se-woon looks over the council and promises to tell them the entire story without holding anything back. But his simple explanation, that it was over a quarrel, sends the elders into an uproar. As they question his sanity, he calmly confirms that yes, he is making perfect sense. Dang Ho-yol explodes with rage, accusing him of proudly leading the clan to its doom. But Dang Se-woon simply asks his uncle what the Sichuan Tang clan truly means to him. As his uncle sputters in confusion, Dang Se-woon begins to explain his own definition. That every member is a foundation stone, meant to protect each other with their lives. He recalls his father's last will, a solemn promise to protect one's blood, and to not hesitate even in the face of death. For that is the true meaning of the Tang clan. The current clan leader listens, his expression unreadable. He then turns to the other elders, asking them what the problem is with his logic. He questions if they truly expected him to stand by and watch as Siola was violated. But Dang Ho-yol cuts him off, not yet finished with his own line of questioning. Dang Se-woon reveals the simple throwing daggers he used in the fight. The elders are stunned, questioning how mere practice daggers could defeat the alliance leader's disciple. He explains that he won by channeling his own innate energy into the attack. One elder notes the immense risk, but another defends him, saying he was upholding his father's last will. Dang Se-woon turns to his uncle, asking if his doubts have finally been put to rest. The clan leader acknowledges that Dang Se-woon truly risked his life for the clan's honor, but he questions the story, noting that Dang Se-woon's energy seemed perfectly stable upon his return. Dang Se-woon calmly explains that he was treated by the alliance leader and the divine physician. His uncle explodes in disbelief, but his outburst is cut short as a guard bursts into the hall with urgent news. The guard's panic is palpable, and Dang Se-woon knows that whatever is happening is very bad. The guard stammers out a warning about the alliance, his words cut short. The other elders can only stare in disbelief at the sudden news. But Dang Si-woon simply places a hand on the guard's shoulder with a knowing smirk. Because the alliance leader himself has just arrived at their doorstep. The clan leader, Dang Mu-yeol, offers a formal greeting to the legendary guest. The Sword Emperor waves off the apology, telling them not to worry about formalities. The clan leader graciously accepts his words, but then adds that he will also overlook the Emperor's own discourtesy, stunning the other elders. Dang Ho-yeol rises in anger, questioning how their leader could possibly call this an insult. He quickly introduces himself, trying to smooth over the sudden tension in the room. The clan leader's eyes narrow with a cold, unwavering intensity. He calmly asks Dang Ho-yeol to excuse himself, forcing a reluctant apology. Dang Si-woon notes the difficulty of serving tea, but the Emperor agrees, ready to proceed as the alliance leader. He turns to address the entire Tang clan, his voice carrying the weight of his station. With a formal gesture, he prepares to offer a sincere apology. He bows deeply, apologizing on behalf of the entire martial alliance for their failure. Li Hosang's master admits his own oversight in failing to properly teach his student. The Sword Emperor then promises to provide ample compensation for the trouble caused. But the clan leader interrupts, stating that the clan itself did nothing to uphold righteousness. He declares that everything was accomplished by Dang Si-woon and him alone, and for that reason he declares he cannot accept any compensation for the clan. Instead, he implores the alliance leader to ensure the truth of the incident is not distorted. Dang Si-woon knows that without this, false rumors would have destroyed them, just as they did in his past life. But the Sword Emperor steps forward with a firm promise, assuring them that the Qingcheng sect will not be able to hold the Tang clan responsible in any way. Dang Si-woon reflects on this victory, having successfully secured his clan's honor. But as the Emperor turns to leave, he says, there is one final matter to attend to. He looks back at Dang Si-woon with a thoughtful, calculating gaze. With the attention of the entire room on him, he asks the young man a question. Inviting Dang Si-woon to become his personal disciple, Dang Si-woon is completely stunned, wondering if he truly heard the Emperor's offer. The elders erupt in excited whispers, realizing he could become the fifth disciple. They know that every disciple of the alliance leader becomes a core power in the martial world. This could be the chance for the Sichuan Tang clan to finally reclaim its lost glory. The Sword Emperor watches him with a faint smile, amused by his stunned expression. He remarks that our boy is finally showing an expression that befits his age. But Dang Ho-yeol panics, knowing his own ambitions will crumble if the offer is accepted. As the Emperor begins to accept his thanks, Dang Si-woon clarifies that he cannot accept the offer. The old man's words trail off, his invitation to Kai-feng cut short by confusion. His expression shifts to one of pure disbelief, unable to comprehend that he's just been refused. The Sword Emperor admits this is the first time he's ever been rejected and asks for a reason. Dang Si-woon explains that just as the Emperor's loyalty lies with the Wudang clan, his own path is to have the Tang clan as his one and only master. The clan leader, Dang Mu-yeol, looks on with a flicker of pride in his eyes. The Emperor accepts his logic, and Dang Si-woon is relieved the old man isn't using his truth-seeing technique. Because in truth, the offer is a poisoned chalice. The moment his demonic arts are discovered, he's a dead man. The Emperor admits his disappointment, but Dang Si-woon says he's grateful for the lesson he received. He reflects on the profound principles of Wudang swordsmanship he witnessed in the Emperor's attack. The Sword Emperor is stunned, realizing the boy saw through the true nature of his test. He finds this young man to be an even more tempting prospect than before. The Sword Emperor compliments the clan leader on raising such an outstanding young man. The leader humbly accepts the praise, though he knows there's more to it. The Emperor admits he can't force Dang Si-woon to accept his offer, but he can't return empty-handed either, presenting a sword with a familiar moonlight pattern. He holds the blade aloft, deciding to invest in the next generation's future. He offers the sword Wave Moon, promising its mystical properties will one day be of use. The elders erupt in shock, recognizing the legendary sword forged from a fallen star. One of them realizes this gift is an official recognition of Dang Si-woon's authority. Dang Si-woon holds the blade, realizing the material for a divine artifact has just fallen into his lap. A wicked smile spreads across his face, his mind already set on divine artifact creation. Dang Si-woon bows deeply, gratefully accepting the legendary blade. But the Emperor isn't finished, offering another, more personal gift. He explains that this token carries his full authority, a promise of aid anywhere in the Central Plains. The elders can only watch in disbelief as Dang Si-woon accepts the token. Deng Hoyol's face twists with pure envy, unable to comprehend this turn of events. Elsewhere, news of the incident has already begun to spread. A man in a wide-brimmed hat curses under his breath, clearly displeased with the outcome. The commander of the Dragon's successor guards, Sun Yugon, seethes with rage over his public humiliation. In a nearby tavern, patrons discuss how the Tang clan's fortunes may be on the rise. They gossip about the Dragon's successor guards, who faced heavy discipline for their actions. They learn that Sun Yugon's career is effectively over, banished to a remote region. Meanwhile, Li Hosang's master fumes, unable to believe he's being punished for his students' actions. Sun Yugon himself is consumed by rage, vowing to repay this humiliation without fail. Back at the Sichuan Tang clan estate, the night is quiet but tense. Guards stand watch, a sign of the heightened security. Inside, a young man sits in quiet contemplation, clearly worried about something. The clan leader, Dang Muyol, orders the guards increased, forbidding Deng Siwun from leaving the estate. His son looks on, torn by his father's command. His gaze falls upon the legendary Wave Moon Sword. But he knows he can't just sit by and waste this opportunity. Deng Siwun holds the Wave Moon Sword, a wicked smile playing on his lips. With his new prize secured, he decides it's time to get to work. But as he tries to slip away, he's spotted by the clan leader's son. The young man's eyes widen in surprise, not expecting to see him out. He watches quietly as Dang Siwun continues on his way. Our boy slips past the other guards, his destination clear in his mind. Elsewhere, a brilliant flash of golden light cuts through the night. The clan leader's son practices his swordsmanship with intense focus. He knows he must get stronger, deciding to forge his own weapon at the workshop. But from the shadows, Dang Siwun watches with a cold, calculating gaze. He moves with a silent, practiced speed, a blur in the night. From a rooftop, he looks down on the Tang clan village, his home. His mind contrasts the bustling streets of the past with the desolate ruins of his future. He remembers how everyone abandoned the clan when things got difficult. But he grits his teeth, promising himself to just wait a little longer. He vows to restore the clan to its former glory, just like it was back then. No, he will make it even more prosperous than it ever was before. With a single decisive step, he sets his plan in motion. He declares that the first ripple of change will begin right here. At the 10,000 Iron Hall, his hand tightening on the Wave Moon Sword, he assumes that at this late hour the workshop will be completely deserted. With a quiet push, he swings the heavy doors open. But he's immediately confronted by a figure who questions his late-night visit. Dang Siwun offers a formal greeting, but internally curses his terrible luck. Of all people, it had to be the clan's greatest elder, a man even his father respected. A core member of the Tang clan who doesn't even bear the family name. He is the master of all the clan's blacksmiths and the owner of this very hall. The legendary blackhand craftsman Gu Yongyun, a man who devoted himself to the previous clan leader, but remains indifferent to their politics. The sight of him triggers a vivid memory of the day his uncle's escort agency abandoned them. He remembers how this master craftsman, a man devoted to his art, ultimately sided with his treacherous uncle. Without a word, the man simply turned his back on him, his eyes filled with a cold resentment. He never understood the source of that hatred, but he knew the look in those eyes was final. Back in the present, Dang Siwun offers a polite apology for his late-night intrusion. He explains that a sudden inspiration struck him, and he had to act on it immediately. To his surprise, the old master simply nods, telling him to go ahead. Deng Siwun is taken aback, questioning if he heard correctly. The old man then tells him to stop wasting time, ordering someone else to come out from hiding. A young woman peeks from behind the door, announcing his arrival. And to his shock, it's Siola who steps forward to thank him for what he did. Siola looks down, her eyes filled with a quiet, tearful relief. Dang Siwun simply tells her that as long as she's safe, nothing else matters. The master craftsman notes that Dang Siwun is supposed to be confined for a week. He then tells Siola to leave him to his work, not wanting to disturb him. As they leave, Dang Siwun wonders why the old man would trust him with his sacred workshop. But the master craftsman calls out to him one last time. His expression is thoughtful, a silent question hanging in the air. But he simply dismisses it, turning to leave with Siola. Dang Siwun watches them go, now alone in the vast workshop. He pushes his questions aside, deciding to focus on the task at hand. His hand tightens around the hilt of the Wave Moon Sword. He knows this is a rare opportunity he absolutely cannot afford to miss. He recalls an old saying that for a true master, weapons are merely a means to an end. But to him that idea is complete and utter nonsense, because he knows there are divine artifacts in this world that transcend martial arts entirely. He looks at the weapons around him, finding the quality of the 10,000 Iron Hall to be pitiful. He picks up one of the blades from the rack, wondering if this is truly the best the master craftsman can produce. He admits the man deserves his title, but his skills are still far from sufficient. After all, even without the divine artifacts he once forged, the blood cult had no shortage of powerful weapons. He knows the blood cult had weapons that were even more vicious than the legends, and to defeat them, he'll need to forge divine artifacts of his own. He pulls on a pair of leather gloves, preparing for a process that is far from ordinary. With a single pump of the bellows, the forge roars to life. Because what he's about to attempt is no simple blacksmithing. He plunges the legendary Wave Moon sword into the heart of the flames. His expression is one of pure, unwavering focus. His mind then drifts back to a time long past, to the moment his joy of creation was shattered by the blood cult's invasion. He remembers the confusion and pain of waking up in this second life. He remembers walking alone through the desolate ruins of his clan, a memory of a scream filled with the agony of losing everything. Back in the present, he grits his teeth, enduring the immense strain of his work. He recalls the moment he first woke up, questioning if he was even alive, and the crushing weight of being the only one to survive the tragedy. His mind flashes back to the Blood Demon Lord's words, calling him a creator of divine artifacts, a legendary skill that was supposed to be lost with the Tang clan's founder. He remembers being a prisoner, his rage burning as he vowed to kill his captor. And now, all of that pain and history is being channeled into the forge. He pushes past his limits, his face contorted with the sheer effort of creation. He remembers being a prisoner, chained and broken by the blood cult's power. The Blood Demon Lord offered him a simple choice: forge a sword or die. But even then, Dang Sewun could only spit back curses and defiance. The Lord then used his family as leverage, questioning if he was willing to let his entire clan die for his pride. He dismissed the boy's threats, utterly unconcerned with his defiance. After all, he claimed he didn't need divine artifacts to conquer the world. The Lord's final threat was a promise to deliver the heads of his clansmen as a gift. And in that moment, Dang Sewun knew he had no other choice. If it meant saving his people, he would endure any humiliation. And so, with his clan's life on the line, Dang Sewun finally agreed. But he offered a condition, explaining that divine artifacts are tied to the user's martial arts. If the Lord wanted a weapon, he would have to share his secrets in return. And so, for 15 years, he forged 10 legendary weapons. And in exchange, he mastered 10 demonic arts, including the Lord's own heaven-defying energy. Back in the present, he knows the workshop's forge isn't hot enough to melt meteorite iron. But with his metal circulation technique and divine creation skill, he forces the impossible. The legendary blade dissolves into a pool of pure, molten potential. He raises a heavy hammer, his expression one of absolute focus. And with a powerful strike, the true work finally begins. Again and again, the hammer falls, each strike precise and powerful. He's forging a weapon that can simultaneously block and cut through anything. His mind drifts to another creation, the symbol of the Blood Silk Demon Empress. He remembers forging the legendary Heaven Silk, though he could only make one sheet at the time. But that limitation no longer matters to him now, because what he intends to create this time is something far beyond the legendary Heaven Silk. He's using Heaven Silkworm thread, the strongest and thinnest material known to man. With impossible skill, he weaves the threads into a new, deadly creation. But his work is suddenly interrupted by an assassin dropping from the rafters above. The assassin's blade comes down with deadly intent, but it's stopped cold by an invisible, unbreakable defense. The attacker can only stare in disbelief, his plan completely foiled. Dang Sewun looks up, unimpressed by the sloppy work of this so-called elite. He recognizes the face of the disgraced dragon successor guard commander, the vengeful Sun Yugon, whose timing couldn't be more perfect, because Dang Sewun just happens to have a new creation he's dying to test. Sun Yugon is grateful, as this saves him the trouble of hunting the boy down. He scoffs at the threads, unleashing the full power of his blade. He's certain he can slice through this pathetic defense in a single strike. But Dang Sewun simply asks if he really thinks he can break through. The blade shatters on impact, leaving the assassin completely stunned. The threads then lash out, wrapping tightly around his hand. He grits his teeth, unable to break free from their grasp. With a single tug, Dang Sewun yanks him across the workshop floor. He notes that the assassin must have grabbed a random weapon to hide his identity, and now he wonders how long the man can last without a proper blade. The threads dance around him, a whirlwind of razor-sharp silk. They whip through the air, completely overwhelming the disgraced commander. Sun Yugon can only panic, unable to track the source of the relentless assault. He weaves through the deadly threads, desperately trying to find an opening. But Dang Ziwun questions if a simple defensive aura will be enough to save him. He decides to demonstrate a new technique he learned long ago, channeling his energy into the threads until they form a single deadly needle. The threads coalesce into a powerful, piercing strike aimed right at his foe. The attack connects with blinding speed, slicing clean through his defense. With his disguise now ruined, Sun Yugon realizes there's no point in hiding any longer. His eyes burn with pure hatred as Dang Ziwun mocks him for not fighting seriously sooner. With a furious roar, he finally draws his true weapon. He leaps through the air, ignoring the taunts and ready to end this fight for good. He's certain that only a sword aura can counter his own. And since our boy lacks that power, victory is assured. But Dang Ziwun's eyes remain cold and completely unfazed. The two forces collide in a brilliant flash of light. The impact sends a shockwave rattling through the entire workshop. But it's Sun Yugon who collapses, coughing up blood in disbelief. Because Dang Ziwun has summoned a new defense from the threads, forming them into a solid, impenetrable shield. The assassin can only stare, unable to comprehend how a shield of mere thread could stop him. Dang Ziwun explains the simple truth. His opponent's sword was just too weak. But Dang Ziwun tells him not to give up just yet, explaining the true nature of his new creation. It's a technique that strengthens what he's wearing, turning simple cloth into powerful armor. The heaven net itself is already as strong as meteorite iron, and when enhanced with this technique, it can block almost anything. The sheer force of the impact sends Sun Yugon reeling, coughing up a mouthful of blood. He can only stare in utter disbelief, calling the boy a monster. Dang Ziwun takes a slow, deliberate step forward, his victory assured. He looms over the fallen commander, mocking his confidence. Sun Yugon can't understand how a mere novice could possess such impossible skill. But Dang Ziwun grabs him by the collar, promising he won't be killed. At least not yet. With a wicked smile, he promises to rough him up just like he did Li Hosang. The memory of that fate fills Sun Yugon with terror, who declares he'd rather die. He decides to flee, refusing to suffer the same crippling defeat. But Dang Ziwun is already one step ahead, his threads lashing out. He forms them into a massive pair of shears, cutting off the escape route. The ground collapses, and Dang Ziwun admits he's getting annoyed. He had hoped for a better fight, but this is just becoming a nuisance. The scene shifts to a moonlit bamboo forest. Sun Yugon runs for his life, desperate to escape. He seethes with humiliation, unable to believe he's fleeing from a second-rate warrior. He can't shake the memory of Dang Ziwun's eyes, realizing they were the eyes of a demon. He's poured all his remaining energy into his footwork, desperate to get away. He's certain that with his superior internal energy, Dang Ziwun can't possibly track him. But now that he's escaped, he has to figure out what to do next. With his career in the Alliance ruined, he decides his only option is to join the evil faction. A wicked smile spreads across his face as he realizes he can trade secrets for a high position. But a familiar voice cuts through the silence, remarking that traitors never change. Dang Ziwun appears before him, mocking his poor choice of an escape route. He explains that this is the Black Bamboo Forest, where the trees are stronger than steel. Realizing he's trapped and out of energy, Sun Yugon makes one last, desperate attempt to flee. Sun Yugon switches tactics, deciding to go for a single piercing thrust. He's certain that if he can just pierce the boy's heart, this will all be over. But Dang Ziwun sidesteps the attack with almost lazy grace. The commander can only stare in disbelief as his final gambit fails. With a simple gesture, Dang Ziwun sends the threads lashing out again. They whip through the air, easily catching the fleeing commander. The impact sends him flying backwards, completely defenseless. The threads wrap tightly around his sword, disarming him in an instant. They then coil around his entire body, binding him completely. A dark energy surges through the threads as Sun Yugon screams in pure agony. Dang Ziwun explains that his heaven net never lets its prey escape. The commander realizes in horror that he's being overwhelmed by innate energy. He's suspended helplessly in the air, calling Dang Ziwun a madman. With his will completely broken, he can only beg for mercy. He pleads for forgiveness, claiming it was a momentary lapse in judgment. But Dang Ziwun looks down on him with nothing but pure contempt. He sends the commander flying, warning him to never show his face again. The disgraced warrior can only offer pathetic thanks for being spared. Dang Ziwun turns his back, the matter now settled. But a wicked smile reveals that this was all part of a much larger plan. Because as Dang Ziwun turns his back, Sun Yugon reappears with a wicked smile, certain he's found his opening. He lunges forward, declaring that for a martial artist, carelessness is a fatal mistake. But his confidence shatters into pure disbelief. as his attack is stopped cold by the glowing blade of the formless dagger. Deng Siwon reveals he was never surprised by the betrayal, because from the very beginning, he never trusted the man at all. Suddenly, another figure rises from the shadows of the bamboo forest. A long-haired man with a cold, determined gaze stands ready. He looks down at the fallen commander with an unreadable expression. With Sun Yugon now dealt with, he declares that only one target remains. Back at the Qingcheng sect, news of the commander's assassination attempt spreads like wildfire. One of the elders slams his fist down, furious that this could have been avoided. He demands to know how they'll clean up this mess, but no one has an answer. Another tries to calm him, suggesting they prepare a compensation plan for the Tang clan. But through it all, Li Hosang's master knows that Dang Sewun's actions have already changed everything. Meanwhile, back at the Tang clan estate, a secret meeting is underway. The deputy chief steward, Young Dal, questions if hiring mercenaries will truly be enough. Because Dang Hoyol is wondering if they can secretly continue an escort mission for the Alliance. He's certain that with a few peak-level warriors, there's nothing to worry about. After all, if the job is done in secret, what could possibly go wrong? Dang Hoyol urges his guests to consider the bigger picture. He promises that once their task is complete, the old clan will fall, and a new leader will rise. The two men sit across from each other, their treacherous pact now sealed. The deputy chief steward seems to accept the terms of this dark bargain. Dang Hoyol laughs, pleased that his co-conspirator has made the right choice. He reflects on how he can now turn this disaster into a personal profit. But elsewhere on the estate, their secret meeting has not gone unnoticed. Because Dang Sewun has been listening from the shadows the entire time, his fist tightens, crackling with that same brilliant blue energy, and he prepares to bring his own brand of justice down upon the traitors. He unleashes a powerful technique, a whirlwind of brilliant blue energy, but the strain of this immense power is clearly visible on his face. 4 days later, he finally rises, his recovery now complete. He recalls the agony of the past few days, his body pushed to its absolute limit. Pushing his innate energy so far caused his defective core to rebel, sending waves of unimaginable pain through him again and again. He admits he overdid it, using his divine creation skill just to test his current level. He knows he didn't need to use such a powerful technique just to defeat Sun Yugon. His mind drifts to another creation, forged for the blood-weave demonic empress, Seo Surin, because just like her legendary weapon, his heaven net is engraved with a deadly curse of its own. He reflects on the secret art he still possesses, a deadly technique embedded in his index finger. It's a power that never misses its mark, but he knows he must recover his energy quickly. He compares Sun Yugon to the warriors of the blood cult, finding the commander weaker than even a regular soldier. He gauges his own strength, realizing he's still far from ready to face their true captains. But his most precise attack is still at his disposal, a single deadly point of force. And then there's the formless dagger, the demonic weapon that changes everything. With this power in his hands, he knows the entire game has changed. Though for now, he can only sustain its power for about 30 minutes. His thoughts are cut short by an angry voice demanding someone move aside. He sees a muscular man confronting his sister, putting her in a difficult position. A guard blocks his sister's path, explaining that the clan leader has forbidden anyone from entering. She argues that the order was meant to stop assassins, not to keep her away. Refusing to be stopped, she pushes past the guard with a determined stride. Dang Sewun greets her arrival, calmly inviting her to sit down first. The two of them sit across from each other in a quiet, tense standoff. He watches her angry posture, wondering just how furious she really is. He knows she warned him not to cause more trouble, so he understands her frustration. Still, he nervously hopes she won't punish him like she did when they were children. She finally speaks, coldly remarking that he looks fine for someone who just caused another commotion. Dang Ziwun can only offer an apology, realizing that yes, she is definitely angry. But instead of a lecture, she pours him a drink, telling him to have it first. She explains it's 100-year-old snow ginseng, boiled for 2 days to help him recover. Dang Siwun is stunned, questioning how he could possibly accept such a precious gift. He remembers this was the prize she received for winning the Dragon Phoenix Summit. She dismisses its value, claiming it was useless to her anyway. But Dang Siwun knows that's a lie, recalling how she fought to become one of the era's greatest warriors. He remembers her long struggle with a training plateau and how happy she was to finally break through. He tries to refuse, but she questions if he's going to ignore her sincerity. He admits that her stern expression, once terrifying, now just feels awkward. But it still triggers a dark and painful memory from a time long past. A memory of his sister, blindfolded and pierced by a sword in the rain. He remembers his younger self clutching his chest in agony as she fell. The vision snaps him back to the present, gasping for air. His sister rushes to his side, her voice filled with genuine concern. He tries to brush it off, claiming it was just a moment of dizziness. But she insists he drink the medicine, her tone leaving no room for argument. He looks at her, the weight of his past life heavy on his shoulders. Realizing he can't win, he decides to accept her kindness and help her grow stronger. He asks her to watch over him as he finally takes the precious medicine. And as night settles over the Tang clan estate, a new path begins to form. His sister's eyes widen in absolute shock at what she's witnessing. Because Dang Se-woon is now surrounded by a brilliant blue aura, his body absorbing the medicine's power. She realizes with a start that he's absorbed at least 15 years' worth of energy from her gift. He rises to his feet, confirming that the medicine has helped him immensely. With a confident smile, he thanks her, his body feeling lighter and stronger than ever before. He then turns to his sister, asking if her primary weapon is still the iron fan. She confirms that it is, her hand resting on the familiar hilt. With a knowing look, he tells her to meet him at the forge once his punishment is over. But their conversation is cut short by the sudden arrival of the clan leader. Dang Se-woon can only wonder what's happening as his father steps into the room. Both he and his sister offer a formal greeting, though Dang Se-woon notes she seems just as surprised as he is. The clan leader stands before them, his expression stern and unreadable. Saren panics, realizing she took the precious ginseng without permission, and tries to explain. But her father simply waves a hand, dismissing her from the room. She quickly exits, leaving Dang Se-woon to face the clan leader alone. His father's gaze is intense, his eyes fixed on his son with a silent question. Dang Se-woon can only offer a nervous reply, unsure of what's about to happen. The clan leader's expression is serious as he reveals that he knows something is different. He explains that during the recent fights, Dang Se-woon was hiding something, even from the Sword Emperor. Dang Se-woon is stunned, but his father simply states that he would always notice the changes in his own son. But he clarifies that he didn't come here to interrogate his son. Dang Se-woon wishes he could tell him everything, how much he misses him and wants to apologize. The clan leader then asks why he's kept his distance, and Dang Se-woon assumes it's because of his own mistakes. But his father corrects him, admitting it was his own stubbornness that kept them apart. He takes a seat, the weight of his words hanging in the air. He explains that his entire life has been dedicated to the alliance and the path of chivalry, and though it caused the clan to decline, he admits he never regretted staying true to his principles. But his expression hardens as he admits that has all changed, until now. He dismisses his own honor, calling himself nothing more than a man who failed to protect his own son. With a heavy heart, he calls out Dang Se-woon's name, ready to continue his confession. He tells Dang Se-woon that while his methods were rough, he wasn't wrong in his actions. In fact, he declares that he will be the one to change and follow his son's path. But in return, he asks for a single, solemn promise. He begs his son not to lose his chivalrous spirit, even if his current path is the right one, because he can sense that his son's killing intent is far too strong. He warns that a man who only executes criminals will eventually become one himself. Dang Se-woon clenches his fist, admitting he doesn't understand chivalry, only that some deserve to die. He believes some people are born evil and will never change, but he understands his father's concern. And so, he holds up a single finger, offering a solemn vow. If his enemies truly don't deserve to die, he will give them one chance. The clan leader closes his eyes, accepting his son's solemn vow. With their understanding reached, he declares that their conversation is over. Half a month later, a carriage makes its way through a bustling town street. A woman inside remarks on how crowded the supposedly remote area is. Her companion warns her to be more respectful with her words from now on. The first woman, Cheong-yeon of the Emei sect, simply says she's stating the obvious. She scoffs at the idea that the lowly Tang clan deserves any respect from her great sect. Her companion is shocked by her audacity, but Cheong-yeon just feigns a surprised apology. Their leader, Abbess Gumgwa, orders her to maintain a horse stance as punishment. But from the shadows, another figure watches, sensing that something is very wrong. The observer looks down, wondering why a supposedly fallen clan is so busy. The streets below are packed with people, all pushing and shoving to get ahead. Cheong-yeon and her companion are taken aback by the sheer size of the crowd. They overhear whispers of the young clan leader's legendary medical skills. Rumors claim he can cure any illness with a single needle, having learned from a divine healer. They also hear that the clan's escort agency is on the rise, a return to their former glory. But Cheong-yeon scoffs, questioning why anyone would wait here when her own sect is superior. A local man explains that her sect is only for the wealthy, while the young clan leader helps everyone. He even adds that Dang Si-woon recently cured a patient the Emei sect had given up on. The abbess finally cuts her off, ordering her to watch her tongue from now on. The abbess reminds her of the Grandmaster's warning, questioning her blatant disrespect. A memory reveals their orders: to apologize to the Tang clan and learn from its young heir. The Grandmaster had made it clear that even the abbess would be punished for causing trouble. Back in the present, the abbess decides against a formal announcement, her curiosity piqued. She wants to witness for herself why this young man's skills are being praised above their own sect. They find a long line of patients moving through the clinic with impossible speed. As one man leaves looking perfectly healthy, the abbess and Cheong-yeon exchange a surprised glance. The abbess's eyes narrow with suspicion, finding the speed of the consultation unbelievable. Her companion agrees, noting that the patient was treated far too quickly to be legitimate. She concludes it must be a trick, accusing Dang Si-woon of being nothing more than a fraud. Cheong-yeon's patience wears thin as a guide finally approaches them with an apology. The woman offers a warm smile, apologizing for the wait and inviting them to follow. But Cheong-yeon believes that such fraudulent practices are a disgrace to true healers. To her, this kind of deception is utterly unforgivable. They're led into a quiet room and told to wait for their turn. The abbess stares at the closed door, her suspicion growing with every passing moment. She quietly peeks through a crack, determined to see the truth for herself. Inside, Dang Si-woon sits calmly, listening to the patient before him. The others join her, whispering that he seems far too relaxed for a serious healer. The abbess is now certain this is a scam, vowing to strike the moment she has proof. A desperate mother begs him to save her child, and Dang Se-woon calmly reassures her. He asks for the details, learning that other healers have already given up hope. After a quick examination, he correctly guesses the cause of the injury, stunning the mother. She confirms his suspicion, explaining it was an accident involving a cart. He gives a precise diagnosis, explaining the nerve damage that has crippled her. From the peephole, Cheong-yeon seethes, unable to believe he could be so fast. But the abbess is stunned, admitting that his diagnosis is absolutely perfect. Her student can only stare in disbelief, unable to comprehend his skill. As the mother asks if a cure is possible, Dang Si-woon prepares to act. He reveals a single glowing needle, ready to begin the treatment immediately. Cheong-yeon watches with disdain, calling his methods as dark as the needle he wields. But her companions can only stare in utter shock at the display. They can't comprehend how he can channel so much energy through such a delicate instrument. Dang Si-woon knows this needle is a true divine artifact, far beyond anything they've ever seen. Cheong-yeon is confused, realizing her secret whispers to the others went completely unheard. And in a single moment, the young girl is on her feet, completely healed and overjoyed. Dang Si-woon's eyes narrow, knowing this was no temporary fix. The abbess sees the truth, that he perfectly reconnected every nerve and meridian. She can only conclude that he is an unparalleled, extraordinary genius. And with that realization, she begins to question why they were even sent here in the first place. The abbess scolds Cheong-yeon for her temper, reminding her they were caught spying. As the healed girl waves goodbye, Dang Si-woon tells her not to return since she's cured. But she insists she wants to see him again, and he offers her candy for her next visit. The mother and daughter leave overjoyed, while the Emei sect members look on. The abbess wonders what their next move should be, now that they've been proven wrong. She decides this is karma for her own actions and steps forward to face the consequences. With a determined grip, she resolves to offer a sincere and honest apology. But her apology is cut short by a sudden, unexpected movement. Cheong-yeon cries out as she's suddenly attacked by an unseen force. The attacker is revealed to be their own companion, who declares she only let them go because she had patients to treat. But he warns them that there will be consequences for spying on his clan's secret techniques. With a cold, menacing glare, he makes it clear that none of them will be leaving this room.